Hi, this is Anne Marie, the anti-HR HR lady, and I wanted to share another HR takeaway related to the Sean Combs situation that is progressing in the news, and everyone so far has now read that entertainment mogul, I guess we could call it, music producer, label owner, entertainment businessman, Sean Puffy Diddy Love Dream. He's called himself so many different things. Combs is being investigated for the Department of Homeland Security, and reports say that it is related to sex trafficking, among other things, likely. But there have been lots of allegations against him, but sex trafficking has been one of them. And as you know, sex trafficking is not only against the law in multiple states, but it is also a federal offense. Now, I want to preface this by saying this is not legal advice. It's also not a legal assessment. This is just my opinion. But of course, my opinion is colored by the fact that I am an attorney licensed and barred to practice law. And I also am a HR consultant with 30 plus years of experience. And so I'm talking about this in the context of HR because I feel that there's a lot of lessons that employers and employees, and I primarily speak to employees, but in this particular situation, I think there are a lot of things to be learned both for employers and employees. And I shared in a video that I will link to this one, takeaway that I thought employers should pay close attention to relevant to this situation. But today I want to talk about something for both employees and employers. And one of the things that as the week goes on and this news story is ongoing and growing, people are coming forward. Most recently, the entertainment writer, Toure, did an interview on MSNBC with Joyanne Reed where he shared that he had heard allegations about Mr. Combs many years ago, he said. I personally know people in the entertainment industry, and I also heard rumors about Mr. Combs. Now, I never heard any rumors about Mr. Combs indicating that he had engaged in any illegal behavior. I want to make that clear. What I just heard was that he was not a very good person and that some of his business practices were questionable. So when these stories broke initially back in November, when Cassie Ventura, his ex-girlfriend, filed that civil suit where she put all of these things, allegations against him inside of the complaint, I was really sad to read the things that she had endured and the things that had happened to her. But I wasn't shocked because, when people are immoral in the business part of their life, it usually indicates that they're also likely immoral in the personal parts of their lives. So I wasn't shocked, but I was very sad to read that one individual had gone through that. And it also occurred to me that if any of the allegations were true, that other people likely experience the same thing. There's a thing that happens to not just people, but entities when they have a lot of money and when they think that they are powerful. And it makes people think that they can't be touched. It makes people think that they can get away with things. And I'm saying this from my experience being in HR over the years, where I actually heard people say, we can do that. I remember having a person who was the COO at the time at a major nonprofit global development firm, which is still operating, well-funded. And she was the COO at the time. She's now the president of this organization, at last I checked. And I was pointing out to her, as the person with oversight over HR and to whom HR reported, I was sitting in a meeting with this person, with my HR person, and we were pointing out to them that they were violating labor laws in the area of having people work, a lot of junior staff working a lot of hours and not paying them overtime. And that they had wrongly classified all these employees as exempt employees, as in exempt from overtime, because they did not want to pay them overtime, not because the people were in fact not functioning as what we would call non-exempt employees under what we call the Fair Labor Standards Act. And we had a meeting with this person to let them know that we had found this issue. We were concerned that an employee might go and file a complaint against the company with the local labor entity, which was very pro-employee at the time. And so we wanted to go about reclassifying these jobs, making them non-exempt and making sure that people were paid for extra hours, because basically the employees were being exploited, the junior employees, very young people who were being brought in and expected to outwork all hours of the day and night. We were hearing stories about people being called at 11 and 12 o'clock by their managers overseas and being asked to do work. And so we were saying that this shouldn't happen. And also, if people were working those kinds of hours, they should be paid overtime. And this woman looked me in the eye and told me that the Fair Labor Standard Act classifications did not apply to companies like, quote, us, unquote. She said that those rules were for people who worked at, quote, McDonald's, unquote. I've never forgotten this conversation, because it reeked of elitism. It reeked of arrogance and hubris. I never forgot it. And of course, this was a white woman who was Harvard educated and clearly thought herself better than people who worked at McDonald's, and did not care about the fact that they were using people in the company wrongfully and making them work hours that they were not paying them for, which they should have been paying them for, because that was really for people who worked at McDonald's, right? A month later, my HR manager at the time, to her credit, resigned and cited this as one of the reasons, that conversation, because what it said to her was that the management had no interest in following the law or making this a workplace that was really fair and equitable for all employees. And I followed suit about 2 months later after that, for the same reasons, among other things, right? And so what I tell this story to illustrate the fact that a lot of times employers and individuals who are employers, because Mr. Combe was an employer, and the allegations are that a lot of the wrongdoing that he undertook, including the abuse Ms. Ventura alleges he subjected her to, was often done in the presence of other employees. And yet no one ever lifted a finger to help her. No one ever did anything, right? And some of the other allegations are that some of the activities, illegal activities that he undertook with other employees, of people that worked for him. I say this all to say that one of the takeaways is that when you know something is being done wrong in your company, you have a responsibility to say something. It doesn't matter whether you signed an NDA. It doesn't matter how much money that they are paying you. Let your integrity be your guide. I left many, many jobs because I was not willing to sell my integrity. My integrity was not for sale, right? And it's very important to understand that you can find another job, but once you lose your integrity, it's very hard to get it back. And so for me, one of the takeaways is, first of all, no one is too big not to be touched. I always remind people that Martha Stewart went to prison. Jeff Epstein was arrested. If these white people get arrested, don't think that just because you're Black and rich, that you are not going to be touched. You too shall be touched if you are breaking the law. Same goes for companies. Do not think that you're so big and so well connected that you can't be touched and that you will just break the law with impunity and no one will ever say anything. That, unfortunately, is not how it works, or fortunately, is not how it works. And so, yes, it may take longer the bigger you are and the more famous you are, but accountability will come at some point in some form or fashion. And a lot of times that comes with losing your business, losing your reputation, and being sued by people and having to pay people for things that you did wrong. So as employers, don't get arrogant and think that you can just get away with anything. And for employees, don't sell your integrity. If you know something is not right and you're seeing someone do something, don't just look the other way and do nothing. It doesn't matter if they made you sign an NDA. And the word on the street was that Mr. Combs would make an egg salad sandwich, sign an NDA. And when people want you to sign NDAs left and right, it's because they're getting ready to do stuff that is not right, that they don't want you to be able to talk about. It's not always about protecting, company intellectual property and all of that. It's because they're doing wrong stuff and they want to be able to bully people into silence. My personal opinion about NDAs is that you should never sign one in connection with a job. I don't care how much money they're going to pay you. Don't let people gag you from the first day. If someone wants you to sign an NDA before you even start working for them, that's a red flag in my opinion. Now, I can understand as you separate from a company being asked not to talk about specific things and there being a confidentiality clause. And, in a separate video, I'm happy to talk more about different clauses in separation agreements and what you should think about them. And I'm working on a training about separation agreement negotiation as well, as an aside. But generally speaking, in my opinion, a person should not sign an NDA in order to get a job. And if you have to sign an NDA in order to actually get a job, it's a red flag. It should tell you that there's something questionable. If there's an NDA that you have to sign, it should be very specific to what it is that you're not supposed to talk about. If it's very, very broad and you just can't talk about nothing, unless you're working for NASA or something like that, I just don't see why, or the National Security Agency or something like that, I don't see any reason why you should have to sign an NDA or agree not to talk about your job up front, unless people getting ready to do wild stuff. And in the entertainment industry, NDAs are used almost as a weapon, right? And they're used to bully people and to keep people silent about wrongdoing, as we saw a couple months ago with the whole Lizzo thing, where people were suing her, alleging a lot of abuse and problematic behavior working for her. And people were talking about NDAs that they had to sign and that people did not come forward because of, initially because of the NDAs. An NDA is not ironclad. If you are being asked to do things that are illegal, or you are witnessing things that are illegal, that may be grounds to be able to break the NDA. And you would need to talk to an attorney, this is not legal advice, about whether or not that would apply to your particular situation. But the point is, don't think that because you signed an NDA or some kind of confidentiality agreement, that gives your organization, manager, whoever, impunity to just do evil things in your presence or to you, and that you can't hold them accountable for it. And so one of the takeaways in this is that because it is alleged that Mr. Combs engaged in a lot of problematic behavior and illegal behavior, right? Where he coerced people to do things that they did not want to do by threatening them with losing their jobs, among other things. And that he also allegedly did things in the presence of other people to other people, and people didn't say anything because they were concerned that they had signed an NDA when they took the job, right? And so people, even after leaving employment for him, would not be willing to even talk to their relatives and other people even about their experience, because they were concerned about this NDA that they had signed and that it would be weaponized against them if they said anything. And so he was able to keep people silent for a really long time using NDAs, right? And thinking that through that process, he would not be touched because what he had done would never come to light. Well, we see that that's not working out so well for him, right? So if any of these, even if a minimum of some of these allegations turn out to be true, and that remains to be seen, I don't think it's going to be a very good outcome for him, right? So the same is for employers. Do not think that you can't be touched. Do not think that the laws of the land don't apply to you because you think you are $100 million company or $200 million company or even $1 billion company. Everyone can be touched. Ask Elon Musk, who's being sued right now, again, for racial discrimination in his company, Tesla, right? Again, which, might explain why, he doesn't like democracy anymore, because, it gets in the way of him being able to discriminate against Black people in his business. But I digress. The idea that you are so big that you could break the law is one that employers need to let go of. And there are a lot of them that actually do have this mindset. Their management has this mindset that they can do what they want, that these little labor laws like the Fair Labor Standard Act and, the American with Disabilities Act and, the EEOC rules, those don't apply to us. Those are for, people at McDonald's. Those are for the little people. They're not for us. They're for everybody. And if your employees know how to document and how to report your wrongdoing to the right authorities, you too shall fall. So get out of your head the idea that these rules don't apply to you, because they do. And for employees, get out of your head the idea that people can't be held accountable. And this system has been built and designed to keep employees in fear of losing their jobs, fear of being sued by their employer because they broke an NDA or confidentiality agreement. It's designed by employers to try to keep you afraid so that you will allow them to do whatever they want to you and keep your mouth shut. But it's very important for you to know that you have power as well, And your power comes from knowledge, knowing the rights that you have in the workplace, knowing how to raise your concerns when those rights are violated, and knowing how to ask your employer to address your concerns, up to and including paying you to leave the environment if they are engaging in illegal behavior. So it's very important for you to know what your rights are and not be afraid to assert them. And I know that employers have set this system up to make you afraid. So your fear is not unfounded, it's understandable. But the most important thing and most powerful thing you can do is to set that fear aside and do what you believe is right anyway. Do not ever put your integrity up for sale. Do not ever let them make you do things that you believe to be wrong. And don't sit idly by and watch them abuse other people and be silent. Do not ever allow that to happen, because once they get finished with that person, they might come around to you next. So even when something is happening in your workplace that is wrong and that you believe might even be illegal, document it. Even if it's not happening to you, carefully document it. I have a documentation journal on my website where I literally teach people through that journal how to effectively document and what to document and how to document. Document the wrongdoing that you see in your workplace, whether it is happening to you directly or whether you see it happening to someone else. You don't know how useful that could be later when you decide you want to leave, right? And it can help you take the steps you need to make them pay you to go. Make sure you are carefully documenting and keeping records of everything that you see that makes you feel uncomfortable or that you think might be wrong in your workplace. Don't wait till something bad happens to you to document. Document from the first day when you start working somewhere. It is one of the most powerful things and most important things that an employee could do that most of you are not doing. Okay? So do that and don't look the other way. Document things and then be prepared to raise those concerns that you have and make sure that you have a strategy and a plan, which is what I teach my clients both through my courses and one-to-one engagement, so that when you go to HR to raise these concerns, you're not just going to complain, you're going to demand very specific action, up to and including them paying you to leave the environment. So I really hope that these takeaways are helpful. There may be more coming down the pike because this situation has legs. This story has legs. I feel like there's so much more that's going to come to light before this is all over. And there's things that all of us can learn from this, even from an HR perspective as employers and especially as employees. As far as employers are concerned, stop abusing people, stop trying to take advantage of people, and everything will be fine for you. Employees, I really want you to know that you don't have to let your employer mistreat you. You do not have to just stay and take it and then be afraid that you can't leave because you might not find another job or they might fire you. Even if you're afraid, do it anyway. But make sure that you are documenting and make sure that you prepare yourself to raise these issues and to report them and to communicate what you want to be done about them. Don't sit in silence and just take it. So I hope that this video is helpful. I hope you learned something from it. Always remember that HR is not your enemy, but they're definitely not your friend. But I am. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.